morning and welcome to a special episode of The Garden Path, all on peonies. Who doesn't love a beautiful peony? It enhances every spring garden, bringing color, fragrance, and just plain beauty to them. They've been around for hundreds of years, even going back to ancient China, 450 years BC, and a fan favorite of Confucius himself. So I won't have any Confucius jokes. But I do have some different varieties of peonies to share with you today and maybe help you decide which ones to buy at some point and how to grow them. So let's take a walk through the garden. Come with me and we will smell our way through. So many of you out there inherit peonies from your grandmother, from your parents, or from an old relative, and they've been in the family for hundreds of years. Peonies can last decades if planted properly and they like their location. So choosing a location is key. They like full sun, which is at least 4 to 6 hours per day, well-drained soil, and air to breathe. And then if you plant them properly the first time, which is no more than 2 inches below the soil surface, they will thrive for years to come. One of my favorite varieties is this little reddish purpley one called Philippe Rivoire. So for all of you French immersion students, don't butcher me for my accent. And it is known for its beauty and its fragrance. It's one of the most fragrant peonies out there. It's just like roses and sweetness, and it's just divine. Moving to this side is this big double bomb of a pink one called Margaret Clark. Margaret, as you can see, is a bigger bloom, stronger stem, but what she lacks is fragrance. So sometimes you trade fragrance for beauty, but it makes an excellent cut flower if you're doing an arrangement. And there's nothing like a big bouquet of peonies sitting on your dining room table. If you look to this side for this white one, this one had plenty of blooms, but unfortunately we had some rain. And the rain on the peonies makes them look a little unhappy. But this one also is very, very fragrant. And the name on this one, because I've tagged them and I'm going to disappear, is Duchesse de Nemours. Don't you love the names? But one way you can combat the peonies from flopping over is getting a peony ring. So you buy the rings. They look like this. It's usually 2 rings and 3 pegs. You stick them in and that hopefully will hold them up for you. But sometimes when they're old and established, you need more than just the rings. And that's when you could probably think about dividing them. And if you recall from a few episodes ago, you divide them and transplant them in September. You don't do that now. They don't really like to be divided. And when you do split them and divide them, it will probably take another 2 to 3 years before they start to bloom again. So in this section, this is what I have. The Duchesse de Nemours is also very fragrant. I don't know if you can see, but behind me I have an old classic, which is a white one, and that is Festiva Maxima. And chances are, if you've inherited a white one from your grandmother or your grandmother's grandmother, it's white with the red flecks. It's known for its beauty and its fragrance. It's a very old classic, and it will live for years to come as well. So this is just a few of the varieties that are in my garden. I have over 33 varieties. They all bloom at different times. These are considered mid-season bloomers. I do have a couple early season bloomers that have passed. Behind me is called Red Charm, and that's unfortunately gone, but we'll show a photograph of that to show you how beautiful that one can be, because it is a true red and very stunning. And then there's a Japanese variety, there's tree peonies. An intersectional peony is a cross between an herbaceous peony and a tree peony, and they were raised so that they didn't need to be staked. A more common variety of that is Bartzella. It's a yellow bloom, it's stunning, and the petals sort of look like tissue paper. Once established, they get a little larger than 2 feet tall, and they are just beautiful in the garden. So I have a couple in the garden. They're just getting established, and there is one on the other side of the house that is yellow. It's not open yet, but you can see the size of the buds. So that's the peony garden on this side of the house, which is my sunniest location next to the driveway. And I'm not telling you my address because I don't want anybody coming with scissors. I break for peonies. I know we said we were going into the backyard, but I just had to show you this type of peony. This is a Japanese variety. It's single petaled. It started off as a pale pink, but it is super fragrant. So most people stop and smell the roses. I stop and smell the peonies. And this one is divine. It's called Seashell. Another interesting thing about this particular one, it reseeded. So once the petals fall off, it forms these seed pods. And I just have left them go over the years, and it's reseeded because the first plant was there, and now it's kind of moving this way. So I mentioned happy spot, happy plant. It's very happy here. So if I can make it to the backyard without finding anything else to smell, we'll get into the backyard. So let's give it a try. We saw some of these varieties in their habitat, which is not natural because I planted them, but I wanted to give you an idea of what they look like up close. So here we have a Festiva Maxima. Here we have a Margaret Clark. Here we have Dr. Alexander Fleming. Here's my Philippe Rivoire. Here's an up close of the Japanese, and it had a little friend in there that was an ant, and I wanted to talk to you about ants in a moment. This one's Elsa Clem. This one is called Port Royal, and it's sort of a single Japanese style. And this one is Kansas, which is fading because it's been sitting in the hot sun, and it's past its season. But very fragrant variety. Not so fragrant. These don't have much fragrance. That has some fragrance. But there is a myth about ants on the buds of the peonies. And old stories say that you need the ants to open up the buds, but that's sort of a myth because what the peonies do is they secrete a sugar and a protein that the ants like to eat. So it's sort of like their salad bar with really good salad dressing on it. They just go and eat and belly up. So the only bad thing about ants on the peonies is if you're giving some to a friend, as you're bringing them a bouquet, you might find some little critters popping out. So just make sure that they're not in there before you give them to your girlfriend or your mother-in-law or something, and just give people more ammunition to be a little upset. But for the most part, peonies come in so many different colors, shapes, sizes, and fragrances, but I think the bottom line is everybody just loves them. So I have a couple more varieties and plants that I want to show you on the other side of the house, but this is the backyard, and don't they look pretty in a single vase? You don't even need anything else. Well, welcome back for your tip of the week. This is the time of year that you can transplant your peonies or move them. If you have a peony that hasn't flowered in a couple of years, there's a good chance it's planted too deep or it's not happy in the spot that it's in. Peonies really like 6 solid hours of sunlight, full sun, during the day. So I had a couple in my yard that didn't bloom, so I dug them up. And the way to dig them up is you take a pitchfork and you go around it maybe about 6 to 8 inches larger than the plant itself. Gently dig it up. So you'll ultimately end up with a clump of roots like this. So what you're going to look for is new growth. And these little dots of new growth are called the eyes. You never want to have the eyes more than 2 inches below the surface. So that's really not a lot of soil that's on the top. So let's go and put this in the ground and plant it not too deeply, and hopefully in the next year or so you'll get beautiful blooms, because who doesn't love a fabulous peony? So keeping the eyes pointed up And mind you, if you buy a peony root online and they ship it bare root, it will look something like this. So you dig your hole, and I've sort of built the hole up in the middle to rest the roots on top so that when the soil settles, once you planted, it won't go too deep. Then just cover it up. And hope for good in the spring. So let's come back in May and I'll let you know if it worked. So this particular peony was bred to have a very sturdy stalk. I don't have this ringed up and it's not staked to keep the flowers up. It is called Old Faithful, and the color is just absolutely exquisite, but it does not have any fragrance. These two blooms are its last blooms. The original bloom was that large. It was at least 7 inches wide. This is a spent one with a lot of the petals falling off of it. So it was a huge flower, known for its color, its sturdiness. Like I said, it doesn't need a ring or a stake, and the color, but no fragrance. I guess you can't have it all. If you've ever heard the expression tree peony, I'm standing in front of a tree peony that I've had in my garden for over 11 years. It takes a little while to grow, but once it's established, it will provide blooms that are about the size of Old Faithful that you saw earlier, and some do have some light fragrance, and they're very easy to maintain because you don't really need to stake these. Once they get a little older, they develop some wood, and at the end of the fall they lose their leaves and you get the stems and it'll come back. They do like a little bit of shelter, full sun, and will provide you some beauty for years to come. And there's actually a wonderful tree peony tree peony museum up in Rochester, New York. They have a tree peony festival every year, so if you're ever willing to make that little trek, I would recommend going. So this is a tree peony. So if you have sunshine in your yard, room for them to grow, peonies are a wonderful choice for your garden, your early spring blooms, and they're very easy to take care of because they require little maintenance. And once they're established, they will provide you years of enjoyment. So I highly recommend them. They're one of my favorites, and I like to collect them, but I'm just running out of room. So I hope you enjoyed this section. If you have any questions on transplanting them, when to plant them, how to plant them, feel free to send an email to miltongardenpath@gmail.com or check on the website on Facebook. It's Milton Garden Path, and I'd be happy to answer. So enjoy your spring garden.